All right, good morning, Institute of Clinical Excellence, PTNI's Daily Show. Sorry, Facebook froze and it scared me. Welcome to the PTNI's Daily Show. Happy Friday morning. My name is Alan. I'm happy to be your host today. Currently serving as the COO of Institute of Clinical Excellence and also a faculty member in our Fitness Athlete division here on Fitness Athlete Friday, the best darn day of the week. Hope your Friday morning is off to a great start. We have a great episode building on an episode we had a couple weeks ago from Joe on youth sports specialization for you today. Before we get started, let's talk about Gut Check Thursday. This week's Gut Check Thursday goes out to Ernie Peral. Ernie passed away. If you've been following him, 99 years young. On Instagram, his grandson Devin has been logging his workouts over the past couple years. We, especially in the adult division, have been sending him birthday cards and stuff like that, and it's been a great relationship. Unfortunately, we lost Ernie this year, but we did Gut Check this week in his honor. Ernie, a 9-minute AMRAP, 9 air squats, 9 burpees, 9 push-ups, 9 sit-ups. Quite simple. If you joined us last night live at 8 to do it live on Zoom, we appreciate you showing up, getting to work out with Ernie's grandson, Devin. That was a good time. So thanks, Dustin Jones, for organizing that. That's this week's Gut Check Thursday. And then we have a couple viewer submissions that'll be coming up over the next couple weeks that are going to be interesting to see how you all tackle them. And then, of course, congrats to those who are moving to the CrossFit quarterfinals, who were in the top 10%, who are moving on from the Open to the quarterfinals, which begins next weekend. That's going to be fun to watch. We have about 10 athletes from CrossFit Fenton who moved on. Mitch, who you may know that teaches with us here at ICE in the Fitness Athlete Division, is moving on, as well as some other athletes. So we're excited to have our extremity management course here next weekend and have the quarterfinals going on all weekend long as well. Some courses coming up, live courses over the next couple months. We have extremity management here at CrossFit Fenton and Health HQ in Fenton, Michigan. If you're in the Michigan or Ohio, Indiana, Michigan area, come join us for that course with Lindsay Huey. That's going to be fantastic. She's actually staying at my house, which I'm still not sure how I feel about, considering how early she gets up in the morning and how much coffee she drinks in the morning. It's always interesting to interact with her in the morning. We have that course here on April 10th and 11th. That same weekend, you can join Jeff down in Miami for lumbar spine management, and you can join Jordan Berry for cervical spine management in Knightdale, North Carolina. The following weekend, April 17th and 18th, you can join Zach Morgan at Onward Nashville for lumbar spine management, or you can join Mitch and Joe for Fitness Athlete Live at CrossFit Little Creek in Norfolk, Virginia. The weekend of the 24th, you can join Christina Previtt for Modern Management of the Older Adult Live, her first course back teaching in the States. That'll be at Onward Charlotte. Or you can join Morgan, Eric Chaconis, myself, and Megan Peach at the South Dakota American Physical Therapy Association Conference. Their spring conference is virtual this year, so you can join us from wherever you're at. We're going to dig really deep into primary care stuff, reading, imaging on Saturday with Eric and Morgan. Sunday, we're going to take over Fitness Athlete and talk about nutrition, talk about strength testing, and some other kind of nitpicky stuff that we don't really get into too deep in the Fitness Athlete curriculum. And then Megan is going to finish the afternoon talking about the endurance athlete. So please join us if you're able to that weekend for the South Dakota American Physical Therapy Association Conference on the 24th and the 25th. And then May 1st and 2nd, we have just a few seats left for bike fitting with Jason London up in Minneapolis. And then you can join Jeff out in Denver for lumbar spine management out in Onward Denver. And then a few online courses starting over the next week. Primary Care Physical Therapy with Morgan Denny starts on Monday, so still a chance to jump into that course. You can join myself, Mitch Babcock, and Zach Long for Fitness Athlete Advanced Concepts. If you've taken Essential Foundations already, we get deep into programming, injury modification, advanced weightlifting, and gymnastics analysis in that course. That course starts April 11th. So if you've been thinking about moving on through the Fitness Athlete curriculum, that is the next course for you. And then finally, you can join Justin Dunaway on April 15th for Persistent Pain Management Online. Okay, speaking of fitness athlete stuff, this episode is going to build on an episode that Joe did for us back, episode 909, titled Youth Strength Training, The Only Danger is in Denial. And so Joe talked about the evidence supporting getting youth athletes training heavy, training hard, and the safety behind it. And we're going to build on that and kind of go into the state of where are we at in 2021 with youth sport specialization. And I want to tackle this from a couple different angles. I want to tackle Who should be specializing? What type of athlete? What does that athlete look like? Who should consider becoming a specialist, a single sport athlete? Who should not be a specialist? What are the parameters that we look at and think that person should not be specializing? That person should not be a single sport person. That person should remain multi-sport. We're going to talk about why do we care so much and why does it matter and where are we at with data, especially as it relates to injury and PT. And then the final point of what can we do about this? What can we do about this issue that we have as physical therapists? So I'll tackle that from a couple different angles as well. So starting from the top, who should be a specialist? We think that mature athletes pursuing a single sport should consider specializing. Now, this might look like a couple different presentations. This might look like a pitcher in high school that's maybe a junior or senior of like, I think I'm pretty good at this. I think I have a shot at doing this in college or maybe even making the pros. Maybe somebody later on in life who finds they have a knack for a sport. Maybe somebody who picks up powerlifting in college and is thinking about trying out some meets and is performing pretty well. That person should probably specialize in powerlifting, or likewise somebody taking up Olympic weightlifting. Folks who should specialize outside of just sports and athletics are folks who need to through an occupational demands, right? Think of your firefighters, think of your factory workers, folks who are doing the same motion, the kind of same movement patterns over and over again. Those folks kind of naturally become specialists. And then insects are really the only other people that should specialize, right? The rest of humankind, if you're not very good at a sport, you're not very passionate at a sport, or you don't have to do a specific motion for your job, you should probably not consider specializing, right? Most people should stick to being generalists, especially if you don't really care, right? If you have that teen athlete that's playing baseball because their parents make them and they actually hate baseball, that person should not probably specialize in baseball, right? That person should probably remain multi-sport. And likewise, most of us are probably not cut out to being specialists. We're going to be better off generalists, right? We're going to get exposed to more movement patterns, different types of load, different sports. That's going to make us more well-rounded and better prepare us for life, which is where we spend most of our time because we're not dedicated to being specialists, which is fine. Most of us have no desire to be a sports specialist, which is okay. But if we don't have that desire, we should remain general focus, which means we should probably be following GPP-based style exercise, stuff like CrossFit, Orange Theory, boot camp, what have you, versus only doing a specific number of movements through a limited range of motion that would make us a specialist. So who should not be a specialist? Who should not specialize? Really young kids should not be playing the same sport over and over again, right? Until we get into late high school, and I'm going to talk about some of the research and data here and show you it's just not opinion. But young kids that are preteen and just entering teenage years should remain multi-sport as long as possible. Get a lot of multi-sport movements, get a lot of cross-training, and just kind of general conditioning. And they should not be considering specializing. We should not have 8-year-olds who only play baseball, right? And who play on multiple different teams. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But we should keep youth athletes multi-sport as long as possible until the later years of high school. Anybody that is a fair weather fan should not specialize, even if they like it, even if they want to be in that sport. If they can't be consistent with training, if they can't be consistent with diet, if they can't be consistent with their recovery, their prehab, hopefully not rehab because they're injured, but if they can't be consistent with all those factors that make a really good specialist, they should not be a specialist. They should remain a generalist, right? And many youth athletes fall in this category, right? They are playing video games till 2 a.m. They are eating fast food as their meal. They're eating 20 grams of protein a day. They're not doing any strength training. They are not prepared to be a specialist. And when they try to become a specialist, when they try to hyper-focus and really crank up the volume of their training, that's when injury happens, right? When we have poor lifestyle, we have a lack of dedication to our training and our sport, and now we just pile volume on top of that shaky structure. That's when we get 8-year-olds who need Tommy John surgery, right? When we have 10-year-olds who have anchors in their rotator cuff. So that's a recipe for disaster. So most youth athletes fall into the category of needing to remain generalists as long as possible. The third point here, why are we concerned? We know a couple different papers here I'm going to cite: Bell 2018, Walters 2018, Post 2017, Arnold 2019. Specialization really limits the variety of movement and increases the risk of overtraining, which is why we're concerned about specialization, right? If you think about powerlifting, right? We're going to bench, dead, and squat. Olympic weightlifting, we're going to clean snatch, and we're going to do some squat variations. Pitching, we're just going to throw a baseball, right? And obviously there is some accessory and strength and conditioning stuff that goes in that, but we really narrow our window of movements, which decreases movement variety, which our body doesn't like too much. And then if we pile volume on top of that, we definitely get that risk of overtraining. We know that we have that specific overload combined with that lack of variety, which is kind of the recipe for injury and burnout. And we look at some of the data. This data is both fascinating and terrible to read. Post 2017, athletes playing a single sport more than 8 months out of the year are the most likely athletes to have an injury. And when we think about how often should these kids be playing, those who are playing more hours per week than their age are the most likely to have an injury, right? So an 8-year-old should probably only be playing baseball 8 hours a week. And what we see when these folks get in the clinic is they are playing on a school team, so they're playing for a couple hours after school. They may even leave the school team and go to a travel team at a different facility in the evening and play some more, right? Some of these kids are playing more in a day than they should play in a week, which is a very, very big issue and obviously a huge increase in injury risk. Post and colleagues in 2018, different paper, same research group, found that most youth coaches are unaware of the current best practice recommendations for avoiding early specialization and overuse injury. So they're unaware of what I just talked about, that they should not be playing more hours per week than their age. And we look at really standard guidelines of sport. Yes, we have pitch and throw counts for baseball, but when we look at across all sports, what are really good, solid recommendations? No more than 13 hours combined of sport total across all sports per week, and not playing more than 8 months of sports per year. So we definitely need time off during the week. We can't practice for 3 hours every day, and we definitely need an off season. There's a lot of magic that happens in the off season of encountering movement variety again, of doing some cross training and some strengthening that's going to make our tendons, our joints, our muscles strong and prepare us for a season of sport, right? That's what the pros do. That's what we should be having our youth do, especially if they do want to specialize. We know Post 2018 showed us that most coaches know overuse is a problem with their athletes, and also are aware that their athletes are playing on multiple teams, right? They're playing school ball, they're playing travel ball, they're playing on multiple different teams, they're playing pickup during school, right? Some of these kids are playing 4, 6, 8 hours of their sport a day, basketball, throwing, baseballs, whatever. Again, they're probably playing more in a day or two than they should be playing in the entire week. Looking at some research from Bell in 2018, finding consistent evidence that early specialization is associated with a 200% increase in likelihood of overuse injury. So if you are 10 years old and you only play baseball and you play 5 hours a day, it's a matter of when, not if, that athlete is going to become injured, right? The volume, the lack of movement variety is just too much. And that tells us again that we should encourage athletes to remain multi-sport as long as possible. Looking at that same paper from Bell and colleagues, finding that the least injured, most elite performing athletes did not specialize until near the end of high school, right? So think of those friends, maybe you're one of these people, of just a really high quality athlete that was great at football, great at baseball, great at basketball. They played 2 or 3 sports. Why were they so great? Why were they so elite in school? It's probably because they played all those sports. They did not specialize in any particular sport. They kept their movement variation high. They had a lot of cross training from being exposed to different strength and conditioning demands for all those sports. And they had a really varied experience versus a very specialized experience. Looking at Walters and colleague from 2018, a lot of these papers keep coming out in 2018, finding that coaches simply do not understand the relationship between volume and injury, that there is a cut point where too much is too much, and when we get beyond that volume limitation with these athletes, that's when injury happens. And concluding in that paper that most youth injuries appear to be preventable. youth athletes report consistent early specialization, overtraining, and substandard or no strength and conditioning programs. Joe touched on that a little bit back in episode 909, but that's definitely an issue that I've seen in my practice across regions, right? It seems to be really system-wide that a lot of these youth athletes are not doing any strength and conditioning, right? They show up to practice. What are we doing? We're playing baseball for 3 hours. We're playing basketball for 3 hours. Okay, I go home. Come back. What does practice look like on Tuesday? Surprise. We're just playing baseball or basketball or throwing for 3 hours. We're not doing any training in the gym. We're not doing any sort of accessory work, core work, single leg work, nothing. We are just playing our sport a couple hours a day, every day of the week, and then we wonder why is my team full of injured athletes? Why are we not making the state championships? I just can't figure it out. What's going wrong? The answer is we have no strength and conditioning or very substandard strength and conditioning. Final paper I'll talk about here, and then we'll get into the last topic of what to do. Arnold in 2019, absolutely amazing paper, and I will come back and on the Facebook video, I will link all these papers. So if you're on Instagram, you're listening on the podcast, you're on YouTube, go to the Facebook page for ICE and look at this video and look at these papers that I'm going to link later on. So Arnold 2019, 159 youth baseball players, finding 2.22 injuries per 1,000 hours of play, which is great, right? We would call that low. We would call that average. When we look at baseball, basketball, Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit, when we see 2 to 4 injuries per 1,000 hours of play, we're not concerned that there's anything with that sport that is causing more damage than normal to the human body. That's acceptable level of injury risk. This same paper, though, finding 100% of the players reporting an injury at some point during the research study, right? So at some point, these players playing a whole lot, playing more than the recommended amounts, encountered an injury. And based on everything I've said, you should not be surprised at all that happened, right? We've specialized early. We have no strength and conditioning. We're playing a ton of volume, 2, 3, 4 times as much volume as we should be playing in a week. Surprise, we're injured. 78% of those same athletes reported having no structured strength and conditioning. Again, show up, throw the baseball. Show up, shoot the basketball. Show up, just play football or whatever we're doing. No strength and conditioning, no actual training. Just show up and play your sport for a couple hours, go home, come back, we'll repeat tomorrow. 55% of pitchers in the study reported having no pitching coaching, right? The coach is not a pitcher. Hey, welcome to baseball. I don't know how to pitch. I was a catcher or I was a first baseman. So throw the ball fast at the catcher and see what happens, right? So no structured pitching coaching obviously probably also facilitates a lot of injury risk. And then probably the most surprising, shocking, borderline disgusting is that they also talked to the parents of all these athletes, and they found 57%, so over half of the parents did not know that their child currently had an active injury when they reported an active injury. So the parents have no idea, right? They're just dropping the kids off. Hey, sweetie, have fun at baseball. See you later. Bye. They have no idea that their son or daughter is having terrible shoulder pain with throwing or heel pain with jumping during basketball, unaware that their children are injured, which is, we won't get into the parenting aspect of that, but that's a little bit surprising. And then one more paper here, Pfeiffer in 2019, just looking at how in shape are youth athletes, right? We think of athletes, we think of people that play sports. They play a sport, they must be in pretty good shape. Not true at all. This paper concluding that most youth athletes could be classified as needing improvement for everything: cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular strength, and body fat. And concluding here, very strong conclusion, which I always love a strong conclusion. Participation in sport does not seem to guarantee adequate health-related fitness. Coaches should focus more on long-term athletic development and lifelong health in their athletes. And kind of having that conversation of what is the coach's goal? Is the coach a high-quality coach that has long-term development of the athlete in mind? I don't want to burn this person out. I want to see this person go on to high school and have a good high school career and maybe get a college scholarship and have a great college sport career and then maybe even make the pros and go on to get a professional sports deal. If you see that in line for that athlete, then you need to be concerned more about the long-term development of that athlete, the strength and conditioning, the fitness of that athlete, and kind of these healthy behaviors, more so than how much can I squeeze this player right now and make it to the Little League state championships, which nobody really cares about, especially that athlete who may be getting surgery in a couple years and not be able to play the sport anymore, right? And so that leads us to this fourth point of what do we do about this? We really need to have tough conversations with our patients. It can be tough if they're younger, right? It's tough to have these conversations with like an 8-year-old, but that's where having the parents come into therapy really goes into play. And having the conversation of, if your kid is so hurt and they're 8 that we're considering surgery, where do you think they're going to end up at in 4 years? Do you think if they're this banged up at age 8 and you want them to go to the MLB, that's not a realistic expectation, right? We are murdering this kid with volume. This kid isn't going to make it to high school. This kid is not going to make it through high school at this rate, let alone go on to college and play for 4 years at a higher level, more volume, and then try to go to the pros and play at an even higher level with more volume. And having that tough conversation of, we really need to back this off. If they really love this sport, we need to commit to only playing school ball or only playing travel ball. We need to commit to you coming here, if you have no other access to strength conditioning, to coming here once or twice a week and really getting after it with me. We need to get this kid squatting, pressing, whatever the sport demand is, plyometric stuff, making sure those tendons are strong and healthy, the muscles are strong and healthy, and that person is ready for sport every single week, and having those tough conversations. And then developing those strength and conditioning programs. If those don't exist in your town, create them, right? Create them at the clinic, at the gym. What a great additional revenue stream for your business, on top of helping all of those athletes increase their performance and decrease their injury risk. Something we're looking forward to starting here at CrossFit Fenton, hopefully next year, is having being able to provide every afternoon youth strength conditioning for really long periods of kind of block periodized strength conditioning for the athletes in the area. They already come to CrossFit Teens, but we can only do so much in an hour, a couple times a week. But really branching out your business, and in whether it's buying more equipment or having another space, or you going there if they have the equipment and running the program, and really dialing up their strength and conditioning. Shameless plug here, if you don't know how to move a barbell and how to dose load, we have a course for that, right? Clinical Management with Fitness Athlete Essential Foundation. So jump into that if you're listening to this and this interests you, but you're not sure where to start. But developing those programs if they don't exist. When we look at what are the elite teams that go year after year to the state championships, they're doing a ton of strength and conditioning, right? They're not on the football field or the baseball diamond 5 hours a day just playing the sport. They're squatting, they're deadlifting, they're doing accessory work, they are testing new maxes. We are checking a whole bunch of data. We're really taking, again, that long-term athletic development into play. And that's what makes less injured players and more elite players as well. It's convenient that the same thing gets the job done for both. And then finally, tell those parents, when school ball ends, we cannot just pick up travel ball. We need an off season, right? We should only be playing equal to our age and hours per week of sport, and then we need a couple months off. We need an off season. Off season could look like picking up an entirely different sport. It could look like we have a lot of teen athletes that use CrossFit as their off season strength and conditioning. Anything besides their current sport is better than just continuing to play their current sport in the off season for a different team, right? Give those movement patterns a break. It's really important. So again, who should be a specialist? People who are really passionate, people who have a real knack for it, people who are prepared to be dedicated to what that looks like. Who should not specialize? Most people, especially those who can't be consistent with training, diet, recovery that it takes to really dial in being a specialist. We're concerned because the injury risk is incredible when we factor in all the variables that can be modified. And what to do? Develop those strength conditioning programs, have those tough conversations with those parents and those athletes. We cannot just play the same sport 5 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week, every single week of the year, except for like maybe you go to Florida during spring break for 1 week, right? We need an off season. We need structured strength conditioning. We need movement variance as much as possible, even within season, to give our bodies a little bit of break and continue to strengthen them to outpace what we're doing to them during the sports season. So I hope that helps. Again, I'm going to drop all these links on Facebook, hopefully here in a little while. So check out the Facebook video for the links. And I would love to hear any questions, comments, discussion you all have on this topic. I think it's really important. It's spring here in Michigan, so we're starting to see the start of sports. We're starting to see a lot of athletes show up in the clinic banged up, and it's like Groundhog's Day, right? Having these conversations of you're playing too much, you're not doing any strength and conditioning, you need to come here and see me and actually get stronger, or join CrossFit teams, whatever, and really prioritize your long-term athletic development and overall your lifelong health and fitness. So hope you all have a fantastic weekend. If you'll be joining us at a live course or an online course soon, looking forward to working with you more. Shout out to those in Essential Foundations going through strict press and push press this week, and then taking their midterm exams. So looking forward to seeing those of you currently in the cohort on Monday night. Other than that, have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.